talk about getting foiling. Rule number 1 about the foil. Safety rule number 1. Guess what it is?
Stay upwind.
No, that was the
Stay away
from
the foil.
Oh,
Safety rule number 1 about the foil is what?
Don't fall back.
Stay away from sharp stuff. Don't let it touch you. You need to know where's the foil.
At all times. Thank you very much, Sergey. You need to know where the foil is at all times. It will not come off the board and hit you. You're going to kick it. You're going to walk into it. You're going to cut it. You're going to cut your hand reaching in the car. You've got to know where the foil is at all times. It will not reach and hit you. You're going to hit it. Okay, that's safety tip number 1. Safety tip number 2. We always fall where?
Away
With the surface of the board, the top of the board, like a tree. Okay, I can lean over, but I'm not allowed to bend over. So many wing foilers look like King Kamehameha. See, they're out there. This is the worst ever. I don't want my feet far apart, and I do not want to be bent over. I am not allowed to foil bending over. I need you guys to learn how to stand up straight. I need to be a tree. You're allowed to lean over, but not bend over. Leaning over means some of my weight is somewhere else. I'm leaning over. On a wingboard, when I lean over, I'm leaning against centrifugal force to hold me up. I do not want to bend over. The second thing is, so those are our 2 basic safety tips with the foil. Now, if you had to stand on a short seesaw for a long period of time, if you had to stand up on a short seesaw for a long period of time, would it be easier to stand all day with your feet far apart on a short seesaw or close together on a short seesaw? I got it close. I got a head nod. Close or far?
I feel like too close at all.
I got a shoulder width, which was not a choice. I got a wide. Okay, so here's what I think. If your feet are very, very close together, as close as they could be together, Ryan, then I would have a hard time controlling it, but I would be totally steady all day because I'd be along for the ride, so to speak. If my feet were really wide, Sergey, I'd have so much control, I'd be exhausted because I'd be trying to constantly fight to keep it level, which isn't really hard to do with that much leverage. The thing is, and what's really cool about a wing foil board that you don't have on a windsurfing foil board, is because there's no foot straps, you guys can walk back and forth until you find the magic spot. But giving you a lot of control, Ed, over something you do not control well is a bad thing. So having a wide grip on a foil I've never been on and trying to wrestle with that's too much. So I would like you guys to be close foil feet people, especially when we're winging, and I want you guys to kind of traverse that board and find that magic point when you're flying that you're able to kind of go along for the ride and not wrestle with it. I don't want to be that wide. I want to keep those feet pretty close. I want to be very upright. So here we go. I got all my gear together. I got my safety tips. I crawl up onto my board. I point that front foot forward. I pull the wing up out of the water, the front of the wing. I actually just make this the front of the wing. Here's the bladder. I pull the wing up out of the water, put the backhand on the boom. I feather down on the backhand. I want to go upwind, so I pull the wing back, arrow forward. The board turns upwind. I stand up front foot. I follow up with that back foot. I bring those feet in pretty close to the fulcrum of the seesaw. My front foot should be slightly on the windward side of the center line. My back foot is touching the center line on the back side of the fulcrum. The nice thing about wing boards is they have stripes. Someone's smart. Since I'm not allowed to look for the dagger board, that's great.
It doesn't have a center line.
No, but it has lots of stripes. So he knows that the gray to white stripe, so he has an idea when he draws his foil up from the bottom to figure out where it's going to go, and then he knows, okay, he can straddle that black stripe or that white stripe. Or I asked him to find the spot for me the other day, and you know what he told me? He said the handle. He said, Andy, I worked my feet closer together, and the handle was his fulcrum. So he found it for me sailing. I asked him to find it for me with his feet touching. So we wandered back and forth. And then when he found the spot where he was doing the least amount of work, he took a peek, and he said he was right on the handle where he carried the board out. So that's cool. Right, so he found it. So I'm up on the board, standing up. I got the wing back, body forward, the board started to turn upwind. Now I want to get more power, so I'm going to move my hands back on the wing. Front hand back, back hand back. way back on the wing. As I move way back on the wing, guess what I start to get? Power. So I'm going to start to lean the body out and forward and rotate the arrow more forward. As I rotate the arrow more forward, I get to pull in on the back arm. So I went, and you guys have to be overpowered right now. I'm going to talk about pumping in a minute, but for now, I am overpowered. Thank God, because otherwise I do not stand a chance of getting up ever. And I do not want to take off downwind, because we learned when we go downwind and we run away from the wind, we have no wind. At least on a windsurfing sail with balance. If I have no wind on a wing, what happens? It falls out of the sky. So I can't be running downwind. So I'm going across the wind. I move the hands back on the boom. I'm going wing, arrow, forward, weight on the front foot, trying to sheet in the back arm and leaning out and forward. The board starts to pick up speed. I'm picking up speed. I'm picking up speed. This is going pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and pick up a little bit more speed. I'm going pretty fast. I'm going to shift the weight to my back foot for a second. Like we did in the windsurfing foil for the moment. We're going to shift the weight to the back foot for a second. The nose is going to start to want to lift up a little bit. As soon as the nose wants to lift up, I'm going to rotate the arrow more forward and put more weight onto the front foot. Head going out and forward, that's going to make my board turn where? Upwind. Board turns upwind even more on the foil. I rotate the arrow forward and I pull it on that back arm and hold myself, and I'm screaming upwind with the board at like 10 degrees and my body at like 10 degrees and everything's leaning 10 degrees and I'm flying upwind. But I could only do that because I was what? Overpowered. Very unrealistic to be able to just sheet in and go.
So did you intentionally take a bigger wing that first time?
Yes. Yes, I don't know what that means, but I'm on a big wing. I need to be overpowered.
Even though you're learning to foil?
Yes, but I'm only going to foil one direction.
Upwind.
Upwind. So I have to paddle. And what's weird is when the nose starts to come up, my tendency is to want to let things out, which is okay, but it's going to make me go downwind and get squirrely. But if I take the arrow when I'm coming up and rotate it forward, then it drives my weight forward and pulls the nose down. I start tracking upwind. I get that feeling right away. And it's not unnatural because I'm a windsurfer and turning it off is kind of weird. You with me? Now, Ed is leaning forward and he's pulling and it just won't go, Ed. Like I am so close to foiling and I can't get it going. I can't get it going. What should I do? What's the first? I don't really know how to pump yet. Yeah, so I'm going to turn downwind a little bit. So if I'm really in my best upwind position and it's not happening and I'm trying, I'm going to roll a little bit of weight to the toe of the back foot. The toe of the back foot is going to bear me off to bob, and I'm also going to put a little bit of weight on that foot as I do so, which makes my weight go a little bit back. If I start to feel the nose come up a little bit because I went downwind that slightest bit, I'm going to rock myself back onto that front foot and turn the arrow and try to come back up again. So I'm allowed a little bit of a baby S turn. Try a little power and then run away from it, right? So I'm gonna go back toe, go downwind a little bit, come off the bob. Ooh, I'm starting to pick up speed. I start to want to feel it come up. I don't want to get caught on the back foot, so I rotate that arrow forward, get my head out and forward again, get back down on that front heel, and I go tracking upwind again. How are we doing? So Ed turns downwind, lines up with Bob. So close, Ed. Just still ain't gonna go up. Okay. I did the best I could. I tried. I bear off. I tried a little bit downwind, just a hair, try to get a little speed. Didn't work. Went back up. Bear off a little bit. I got my hands way back. Like I can't be holding this any farther back. The power still not enough. Right? Everybody with me? So now I have to learn to pump. Think about this. If you can go out underpowered and get the board up into the air and going, then you've got plenty of power the rest of the day. So you really want to be the guy out there with the small swing, but you got to learn to pump. So I want you guys to envision for a moment what a seagull looks like when it flies. Okay, as you see a seagull flying, think about the core of the seagull.
This one right there.
And it doesn't really move. But when you watch the tips, you watch the tips, and it looks like the tips fly up and down. So the pump I'm going to teach you, we're going to do a really violent, really angry, like scream and holler. Going to shake this wing really quick and really fast and really short. And what happens is the tips start flapping. If you get the rhythm right, I'm circular, tightly moving the inner core, and the tips start flapping. And if I get the rhythm right and I can keep it moving, the tips keep flapping, and before you know it, you're taking off. Literally, the thing's like, and it's pushing you forward. It's a small, violent, circular motion. Now, windsurfers rolling, we use our hips to pump. We cannot do this on the wing. I don't want you guys, none of this is hip pump. I'm not hip pumping, none of that stuff. Part 1 of pumping, shake weight. Remember the shake weight? You're gonna shake weight. That's my first one. Part 2 of pumping is gonna be a front foot dribble or a front foot bounce. As a windsurfer, I tend to want to pump a little bit with my head back, but I'm gonna put the head over the front foot. I'm gonna do a front foot bounce like you're dribbling a ball. Now that doesn't make sense because I want to take off. Why would I be pushing down on the front foot? It doesn't make any sense. What?
Push it down.
Okay, so if you think about how a foil works, right? You got that wing on the front. And when you slam your foot down, you are accelerating the laminar flow over the top side of that wing, which is giving you what? Lift, low pressure. So foot slamming, like dribbling the ball effect, if I slam it down, you're accelerating, and every time you slam it down, it gets more solid and wants to come up. The only reason I can push on the back foot to take off is because I'm going fast enough. Why am I going fast enough? I can't get up. Ed's super frustrated because he should be up by now and he's not up, right? You're pissed off. So I can't push on the back foot to take off because I'm not going fast enough. I got to dribble a ball with the front leg. So here we go. I'm pointed across the wind. I can point the board a hair downwind because it didn't get up. So I point a little bit downwind. First is shake awake, no body movement. Vertical pumping only. Circular motion. Now the board starts to pick up speed. Part 2, front foot bounce. Right? Head over the front foot, dribbling the front foot. The board's starting to come up. The second the board comes up, I got to immediately shift into my upwind stance. Rocking to the front foot. I have to go from double bendonitis to independent arms again. That was the only time I was ever allowed in my life to move my arms together. So I got to get out of that habit as soon as I'm flying because that's not a good habit to stay in. So we're shake away, front foot bounce, front foot bounce. Be very deliberate. When I'm good, I might be able to do them together, but first the arms, then the foot. No movement of the body other than vertically. Slam that thing down. I literally would jump up and down on it when I'm having a bad day. Shake weight. Front foot bounce. The second it starts to come up, I got to turn into a tree. Pump, 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 arrow forward, head forward, locked out, wing back. Turn upwind, squeeze my apparent wind in, lock my weight onto the front foot, and rotate the arrow forward for forward pull against that apparent wind. Not downwind. Okay, swell's different. If I'm riding off a swell's different, but I don't have that swell. I don't want to go downwind. I might be 15 minutes, 10 minutes below 3 or 9 o'clock. And the second I pick up speed, I got to be pumping and turning that board into the wind on that pump so I can squeeze those forces together and keep me going. So here we go. I'm up on the board and I'm standing. I'm overpowered, thank God, so I get to move the hands back. I keep working body forward, working that arrow, trying to sheet in, pumping the back arm, arrow forward, arrow up, picking up speed. I turn downwind on the back toe, board goes downwind a little bit, picks up even a little bit more speed, start to pick up speed. Once again, I can bounce that front foot and roll into my upwind stance and turn that arrow forward again, and I'm screaming upwind, screaming upwind. How are we doing so far? Now, after I'm really good at going upwind, I have to learn to do what? Go downwind. This is fun. I get to do some S-turn experiments. So I'm pedaling, I'm screaming upwind, arrow back. Wing back, arrow forward, body forward. I'm going to turn downwind. I'm going to point the arrow up into the wind and roll my weight over the back foot. So as I roll my weight to the back foot, the board starts jiving down towards rolling. My board is turning downwind because I put the weight over the back toe, and I have the arrow pointed to the wind, and I'm going downwind towards rolling, and I can literally pump front foot, back foot, pump the board, get the feel of front foot pumping downwind. Board starts to lose speed. I immediately go back onto the front heel. I rotate the arrow from overhead back to forward. I turn everything back up into the wind. In my out and forward position, I'm foiling upwind, go downwind, arrow back up into 12, roll the body over your back foot. Right, your head goes from outside your shoulder to back in over the board. Going downwind, I can foot pump downwind, learn to balance downwind, learn to surf downwind. And when I learn how to speed, again, roll the weight to the front heel, start banking the board upwind, turning my arrow forward again. starting to carve myself back up. I only want extreme angles from you guys. The middle will come. I gotta find the two positions, extreme pedal and extreme coast. When I am going upwind, like no one else, when I am trying to win the race upwind, I swear to God, my front hand is so far back on that wing, and my front foot is so locked down on the edge of that board, I am just driving this thing sideways upwind. Every power, everything you can possibly do. And then downwind, you're way up on the front, you're just floating and coasting. Unless you want to race downwind, which is a balls thing. Right, the rest of the time, we're just going to coast downwind. Just float and coast and float downwind. And that's all there is to it. Two positions. Pedal, upwind, learn to coast and stand downwind. If I can keep my feet close together and find that magic point on the board to balance, and I concentrate on the arrow, and sometimes I need it and sometimes I don't. I get a lot of guys that are out there the whole time and they're winging and they look like this. This looks okay. Like, Bob, I don't look too bad. What would you guys tell me to do right now?
Straighten your arms.
Yeah, and stop pulling on it. If one arm's pulling against the other, there's no reason for that. I can just stretch out and hang on the thing. What else? I'm using a lot of core tension. Like, I don't need to be that, I gotta learn to just kind of stack myself. Like, stand up, let everything set up over your feet. I don't need all that extra power because I'm nervous or tense. Just let it out. Just let it go. Let the arrow figure out where to let it out and coast. Yes, Bob?
What about a harness?
So harnesses are good. We'll talk about it in a minute. Rolling.
Yeah, did you move your feet when you did when you went downwind?
No. Theoretically, I should be. I'm a bigger fan of the open front foot, back foot on the leeward side. Some people would much rather have you foil in snowboard stance.
Okay. So the back heel is across the center line.
Yeah.
And the front foot is on just the other side of the center line.
Yeah, and I'm actually good enough now I can tack with my foot on the side of the center line. Like after a while you learn. So it's really weird. This is hard to conceive, but pitch control, think weight on the front foot's down, weight on the back foot's up. But then if you looked at this, and you thought if I put all my weight on my front foot, my board would also turn where? Towards Andre. But I know that I can put weight on the front foot and counter that Andre turn with this leg. And I know when I'm carving downwind, I could put on the weight on the back foot, and then theoretically my nose would hit Rich right in the face. It would fly right up. So I have to keep the nose down so I don't smack Rich, but I'm still turning with the left foot. So after a while, you get kind of better at controlling the opposite foot on the opposite side to control pitch on something you're not turning against. But initially, when I first looked at that scientifically, I'm like, no, that can't work. I got to better put both feet on the side I want to turn this way, and both feet on that side I want to turn that way.
So you've usually got one foot in either side of that
I do.
tic-tac-toe thing.
Which probably makes me evil and terrible. But yes, I'm a windsurfer. I like that tic-tac feel. I want that face forward.
And that black stick is the balance point of the foil.
Yes, the thickest part of the front wing. But basically we have our upwind stance, downwind stance. You guys got the idea of getting speed. We got to try to go in the upwind stance. We understand front foot pumping. You guys understand how to shake the wing, and the faster, the more violent you shake it. What I have found with people when they pump with the wing, though, is they only pump till it starts to get up in the air. And then the second they start to get up in the air, they are distracted with that, and the pump stops. If you had to pump to get up, then you got to pump yourself up and pump even as you're in the air. Once your speed gets up in the air and your apparent wind comes in, then you can sheet into that. But you have to pump through that first initial lift and pump up, and then try to rotate that wing forward and turn that pump into forward drive.